Hello, I want to thank you for clicking on my channel. I'm PI187, and today I'm going to be reacting to some more history on Germany. This one is called Geography Now Germany. I think the channel is called Geography Now, and the subject is Germany. But anyhow, I had someone in my comments suggest this video, so I figure I'll check it out, see what it's all about. I'm sure it's going to be a lot more informative than the 5 minutes of German history, because that really didn't tell me a whole lot. All right, so let's do this. I'll get my headset on. Let's check this out.
All right. Lederhosen, Schnitzel beer, Bratwurst order, bread and beer, complicated history beer, no humor, EDM, and gummy bears that will kind of like give you diarrhea, but it's like worth it. Ugh, those are such horrible stereotypes that every German is so sick and tired of hearing. One gummy bear?
I know those gummy bears. I've had them before. They are not the greatest gummy bears either, are they? Anyhow.
Types that every German is so sick and tired of hearing. One gummy bear?
It's time to learn geography.
No! Hey everyone, I'm your host Barbie. So, we've conquered Belgium's castle, jumped through Denmark's lagoon, danced through France's forest, and now we've made it to the final boss of the EU, Kingpin Germany. Level 1, begin. Ah, you know why I'm smiling. Yep, Germany has a lot of territorial anomalies. We'll get into that in a little bit, but first, Germany is located in central Western Europe, bordered by 9 other countries. Don't forget little Luxembourg, with small coasts on the North and Baltic Seas, which they own about 50 small islands. Now, Germany, like the US, is a federal republic which has 16 smaller states, or Bundesländer, each with its own constitution, 3 of which are cities, the capital Berlin, Hamburg, and Bremen, which is actually kind of like 2 cities, including Bremerhaven on the coast, but they kind of act like one entity. Fun side note, Lower Saxony is actually geographically situated further north than regular Saxony. Now let's jump into the fun stuff. Now, we already discussed the Jungholz Quadripoint and the Vennbahn railway enclaves with Belgium and Austria. However, there's a few more. The entire town of Bussingen am Hochrhein is surrounded by Switzerland, whereas part of the Konstanz is cut off by the Rhine River and surrounded by Switzerland. However, immediately across the river, a small patch of empty land on the German side actually belongs to Switzerland. Finally, they split the island of Usedom with Poland in the north.
Strange.
Germany is interesting because every state in the country has its own distinct culture, dialect, history, food, traditions. I mean, Bavarians will be quite drastically different from Schleswig-Holsteiners. Mecklenburg-Vorpommern will be different from Saarland. This all has to do with ancient and recent history. Basically, in the quickest way I can summarize this, Germanic tribes, Roman wars, Charlemagne, 3 kingdoms, this guy marries an Italian, creating a whole new mess called the Holy Roman Empire made up of 300 smaller
Oh, wow.
separate kingdoms, states, and dukedoms, which had nothing to do with Romans. Teutonic Knights, Brandenburgs became Prussia, Habsburgs became Austrians, Lithuanians and Poles made their own thing, whereas the Hungarians joined the Austrians. Wars, battles, Napoleon comes over and messes everything up, and finally, German nationalism surges, and in 1871, Otto von Bismarck creates the first proto-German unified state. And then they're all like, oh dang, we came late to this game, we gotta scramble for some colonies, and that's how all of these countries at one point spoke German. Oh, and also keep in mind, like 300
I gotta go back. I didn't see. What was that?
for some colonies, and that's how all of these countries.
Oh, wow. They're spread all over the place. There's one right over here. Oh, and they circled all these little islands, too. Just to let you know.
Countries at one point spoke German. Oh, and also keep in mind, like 300 years before this, a German banking company obtained colonial rights to Venezuela for like 20 years. They were looking for the lost city of El Dorado. So technically, you can kind of say Germans colonized the Americas, but it wasn't like a nationalized conquest thing. Fast forward even more, and then you get World War I, the monarchy ends, Treaty of Versailles, they lose land, Nazis come in, World War II, Germany splits in 2 for about 40 years.
I just watched a video, 2 videos actually, that someone else suggested about the Berlin Wall and that space in the middle where you basically couldn't cross or they'd kill you is pretty insane. That's all new info to me. I was pretty blown away by that basically they trapped all their people on the one side and wouldn't let them escape, and if you tried to escape, they killed you over it. Like, that's like some North Korea stuff right there. But anyhow, Let's go on with it.
And then finally, we get the Germany we have today. East Germany, consisting of these states, is today still quite different from the rest of Germany as it was first occupied and influenced by the Soviet Union. They are generally not as well off economically as the rest of the country, as you can still see the blocky Soviet-style buildings.
They are some blocky looking buildings, aren't they? They look like they'd house a lot of people, though.
Buildings sprawled throughout the regions. In fact, the city of Berlin was split in half, and the west side was actually an enclave of West Germany, only accessible by train and highway. You can even see from a satellite image the divide. East Berlin still uses the yellowish tinted sulfur vapor light bulbs, whereas the west still uses fluorescent and mercury arc white tinted light bulbs. Now,
that is really crazy that you can see that from space, or well, from the sky anyways. I don't know how high up you're going to see that from, but you can definitely see the different colors going on there. That's nuts. Yeah, we don't even use these light bulbs much over here in Canada. Like, they're very rare to find. Everybody's using, well, we're not even using fluorescent either. We're using LED now, so, but a lot of them are white. They can actually change color. You can make them so they look like the other ones if you want, but if you're into that light, you can buy the different tones, I guess, of LED, which, you know, probably are obviously save a lot of money compared to what these things cost to power all the time.
For vapor light bulbs, whereas the west still uses fluorescent and mercury arc white tinted light bulbs. Now, the funny thing is, although Berlin is the largest city in Germany, the busiest airports are actually Frankfurt, Munich, Dusseldorf, with Berlin Tegel ranking at number 4. Otherwise, some top notable landmarks and spots would be the Brandenburg Gate, the Valhalla.
Stop that for a second. Those are some cool looking airports.
City in Germany. The busiest airports are actually Frankfurt.
Wow, that looks like a giant ship almost.
Munich, Dusseldorf, with although Berlin is the largest city in Germany, the busiest airports are actually Frankfurt, Munich.
He's going by them so fast I don't get a chance to really get a good look at them. That's a huge airport. Holy jumpins. Wow.
Dusseldorf.
I got way bigger than that one is anyway.
With Berlin Tegel ranking at number 4. Otherwise, some top notable landmarks and spots would be the Brandenburg Gate, the Valhalla, Cologne Cathedral, the Ulminster Church, the tallest in the world, the Berlin Victory Column, and hundreds of castles all over. The most notable one probably being Neuschwanstein, the concept behind Disney.
Yeah, that's a gorgeous castle. I seen that in the other video I watched. It's literally amazing. A lot of the castles there are amazing though, like, and yeah, I've heard a lot of people make comments about the fact that there's more castles in Germany than there are McDonald's in the USA, which is crazy because honestly the USA probably has a McDonald's on almost probably every street corner, pretty close anyway. Like, I live in a small town and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5 McDonald's here. They're not, one of them is not really a full McDonald's. One's inside a Walmart. I don't know if you want to classify that, but it's still, you can still get all your McDonald's there. And like I said, I live in a small town and we have 5 McDonald's in my small town. And only like maybe 3 Tim Hortons. And, you know, Canada's known for Tim Hortons.
Disney's Cinderella Castle. Germany also has over 400 zoos, more than any other country in the world.
Wow.
And of course, everybody knows about the Autobahn.
400 zoos. That's a lot of zoos. I've been to the Toronto Zoo many times. Let me rewind this a little bit.
Germany also has over 400 zoos, more than any other country in the world. And of course, everybody knows about the Autobahn, the highway system in which if you see this sign, it means there's no speed limit. And it's like that for a huge portion of the roadway.
That's crazy. I've never seen that sign before. I wouldn't have known that meant no speed limit. I do now because he told me. But I would have been so confused when I saw that. I have heard, though, that the Autobahn has no speed limit. I had some of my wife's family members that have a little bit of money, and they got Lamborghinis and stuff like that, and they went there and raced down that highway, I've heard, because of the no speed limit thing. Um, do they get a lot of accidents on that road because of the no speed limit thing? Like, it's pretty crazy to really to try to comprehend no speed limit. Like, I'm sure if you're used to it, you're used to it. But over here, we got speed limits everywhere, and it's actually not that fast. Like, most people drive about 20 kilometers more than what the speed limit says, and that seems about normal. And then you exceed that, you start having the police chase you down. Recently, they just put in auto ticketers in my town, four of them, that they kind of just move around to different locations to catch you. And if you're doing like 5-6 kilometers over the speed limit past them, they just take a picture of you and your license plate and mail it to your house and say, $100 you owe me. So in the last year, they've gotten me for two of them now so far, and I wasn't even really honestly speeding. Like, I obviously was doing more than the speed limit, but like I said, our speed limit's pretty low. So, you know, um, everybody, you just gotten used to, after 20 years of driving, you just get used to doing basically 20 over everywhere you go. But if you do that going past these things, you're getting fined. And the cops wouldn't pull you over for doing 20 over. You could pass the cops sitting on the side of the road, and if you weren't doing at least 25 over or more, they wouldn't even waste their time with you. But these machines, they're it's so easy for them just to take your picture, send you a ticket, and then say thank you for your money. It's basically a speed trap, not like a. And honestly, I don't think they make the roads more safe. They make the roads probably more dangerous, in my opinion, because all of a sudden, like, you'd be driving down the road and there'll be one up ahead. Everybody all of a sudden just slows down. They're all driving the same speed they've always driven for the last 20 years here everywhere, but whenever these speed traps come up, everybody tends to slow right down, hit their brakes, and it's just like, it just messes with the whole flow of things, if you know what I'm saying. Sorry to bore you with all that.
And no wonder, considering how vast and wide those cultivated countrysides can get. Time for level 2. Okay, think of it this way. In Germany, the more down you go, the more up you move. Basically, Germany lies on the Atlantic shelf in the north that starts with the mudflats in the North Sea. Seriously, this island right here is accessible only for...
Oh, I see that again. That is cool.
Shelf in the north that starts with the mudflats in the North Sea. Seriously...
Oh, wow. That is messed up. So you getting there by plane? Is that how you get there? I don't even know if a boat would get there by the looks of that water. It looks like it's way too shallow in some spots. That is neat, though. That's all sand, is it? It looks like sand. That would be so nice to walk around in your bare feet on. Unless you started sinking in it, then it wouldn't be so nice.
This island right here is accessible only for a few hours by foot until the tide comes and floods.
Oh, it is accessible for a few hours by foot. For a few hours until the tide comes in. That is... It's crazy people are even living on that thing. Like, you would think you wouldn't even bother with all the problems together, but that is really cool. It doesn't look like there's a lot of people living on it by the looks of it, but looks like more like a big chunk of farmland.
That's everything. Then everything just kind of creeps up into the Alps in the south by Bavaria and Baden-Württemberg, with the highest mountain, Zugspitze, located right along the border with Austria.
So I don't know if this guy's German, but he does a really good job with these accents. Just wanted to point that out, because I would not be doing this good at all.
Kind of like France, Germany is filled with a vast irrigating network of rivers like the Spree, Elbe, Weser, Rhine, and of course, the mighty Danube that starts here. About a third of the land is arable, and another third is woodland, and after a millennia of civilization, Germans have cultivated the crap out of their country. Most agriculture, of course, happens in the North Flat Plains and the central regions of the country, which is, by the way, kind of like Europe's Tornado Alley. Due to its position sandwiched between the Arctic blasts of Scandinavia and the moist, warm jet streams of the Mediterranean below, Germany can be an atmospheric war zone in the summer. There are more tornadoes on average in Germany than any other country in Europe. Speaking of flat farmland...
That's some crazy info right there. Yeah, you got worry about tornadoes every year.
Germany is the world's largest rye and hop producer. Germans abso-freaking-lutely love their bread. There are over 300 different kinds of bread.
Who doesn't really love bread, though? Honestly, it is good. I don't know if I would want to eat 300 different types, but I definitely love my bread.
bread in the country, more types than any other country in the world, and almost every meal incorporates some kind of slice or small bun or Brötchen of bread. Hast du gluten-free? Nein! Germans are heavy meat eaters, specifically in pork. They basically know every possible way to cook a pig. Over 50 different types of sausage exist alongside schnitzels, rouladen, sauerbraten, Schweinsachse, and at a big party you might find Spanferkel. Beer reigns supreme all over as the third largest consumers of beer after the Czech Republic, even their president has no problem with public intoxication, and Austria. Germany is world-renowned for their beer, which, by the way, follows the Reinheitsgebot rule in which they are only allowed to use water, hops, malt, and sometimes yeast. Nonetheless, about 1,300 breweries exist, pumping out over 5,000 brands. The oldest
That's insane. 5,000 different brands of beer. How many? 300 businesses?
The Reinheitsgebot rule in which they are only allowed to use water, hops, malt, and sometimes yeast. Nonetheless, about 1,300 breweries exist, pumping out over 5,000.
That is a lot. That's extremely a lot.
Brands.
I thought Canadians liked their beer, but I guess not even close compared to Germans.
The oldest continuously existing brewery in the world, started by Benedictine monks in 1040 AD, can be found here. Germany takes the environment very seriously.
That was kind of a funny picture, because honestly, you wouldn't even I wouldn't have thought even monks even drank, but that's just that's a funny picture. 3 monks carrying cases of beer into the monastery.
By Benedictine monks in 1040 AD can be found here. Germany takes the environment very seriously, and for the past 2 decades has been going on a major green revolution. As of today, they have the largest installed solar power capacity, and green infrastructure practices like home-installed turbines and solar panels have seen a huge surge in the past 10 years. Forests dominate the southern...
Yeah, we, maybe 10 years ago, we put in a whole bunch of solar farms here in Canada, and I worked at a fence company at the time. And my boss got the contract to put all the fences here in Ontario anyways, around all the solar panel farms. And so that kept us busy for a couple of years, putting all those fences around all those solar farms and whatnot. Is pretty crazy. We do have the wind turbines here too. We didn't put no fences around any of them. I've seen some though. They're massive machines.
Southern regions where the landscape gets hillier and mountainous, the most famous one being the Black Forest or the Schwarzwald in Baden-Württemberg. Deer, bears, boar, foxes, badgers, and the national animal, the eagle, can be found thriving in these parts. Nonetheless, economically, Germany is known mostly for their exceptional engineering and industry production.
Yeah, I would definitely say Germany's definitely known for their engineering. Like, they definitely know how to make machines. Cars, top of the line. I've never heard anything bad about their engineering, to be honest.
Nonetheless, economically, Germany is known mostly for their exceptional engineering and industry production. Companies we've all heard of like Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, Benz, Porsche, Audi,
Audi. I used to have, I've had 3 Audis, to be honest. Sad thing is I called them Audis because I thought that's how you pronounced it, not Audi. But I'm not German. And, I did like the cars. I no longer have them. They weren't cheap. They weren't cheap to take care of. They weren't cheap to fix. So that's why a lot of people, only the rich really drive them around here anyways. I'm sure they're everywhere over in Germany. Same as the BMWs. They both are expensive to fix here. A lot of people have Volkswagens though. A lot of Volkswagens.
Production. Companies we've all heard of like Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, Benz, Porsche, Audi, Telecom, Nivea, DHL, Bosch, Adidas, Puma, Adidas, Puma.
Yeah, Bosch is a good brand too.
Biscoito Bolacha thing from Brazil. Remember? Well, we have mudflats, tornadoes, pork, beer, mountains. All that's missing is people. Level 3. Fun little side note, in Germany, this is 3, not this. Now, if the EU was a family, Germany would kind of be like the dad who got out of rehab, reconciled with his wife and kids, and is taking his new life very seriously as he is haunted by the demons of his past every day. First of all, the country has about 82 million people and is the most populated in the EU, second most in Europe after Russia, and has the 4th largest nominal GDP in the world. About 80% of the country identifies as ethnically German, 12% other Europeans, mostly Polish, Italian, Dutch, and so on. Turks make up about 3.5%, Asians at 2%, and the rest are made up of other groups like Africans and Americans. Also, they use the euro, they use the C and F type outlets, and they drive on the right side of the road. Africans and Americans. Also, they use the euro, they use the C and F type outlets, and they drive on the...
Yeah, those are Actually, they're not much different than ours, except for ours are flat and your guys' are round, basically, the plugins. It's almost the same as us here, except for ours are two little slits instead of two little things. That money kind of looks like our money here in Canada, being all colorful the way it is and whatnot. And yeah, a little different. We don't have no 200s and 500s, though, but other than that, it is pretty colorful compared to, say, the American money, which is all the exact same color. Funny story is when I was a kid, we went to Florida one year for our Christmas holiday because my grandparents used to move back and forth from Florida to Canada, you know, the snowbirds. And we went to visit them one year when I was in public school and went to get change for a 20. I said, hey, can I get 4 quarters? And they gave me 4 quarters. I, just stupid kid. And I gave them a $20 bill, not realizing because, all their money looks the same to me because I was Canadian. I was used to colorful money. And, of course, the person just gave me the 4 quarters. And it wasn't until later that I realized I'd given them a 20 and there goes that money anyway. But, yeah, I got to be kind of a pain having, like, I don't know about the money all being the same color. I prefer it being different colors like that. I know a lot of people probably make fun of it, like saying, oh, that looks like Monopoly money, but it's so much easier to tell what you're dealing with when it's all different colors.
The right side of the road. Germany is without a doubt a global powerhouse. It is the strongest economy in the EU and makes up about 16% of the Union's population. It's the 3rd largest exporter and importer of goods in the world. After the United States, Germany is also the 2nd most popular global migration destination. Germany experiences a high standard of living, tuition-free universities, if you get accepted that is, a mostly government-subsidized universal healthcare system, about a quarter is still privatized, and state pension for retirement at age 65. Now when it comes to language, things get a little tricky. Each state kind of has their own type of German. However, to get by, most Germans learn how to speak Hochdeutsch, or High German, which is the standard dialect. The European Charter, however, protects the minority languages of Frisian, Danish, Romani, Sorbian, which is like a Slavic-based language used along the Czech-Polish border, and Plattdeutsch, or Low German, which has similarities to Dutch and is typically used by the Amish and Mennonite.
I'm gonna say that sounds like it has something to do with being Dutch. Hence the name Amish. We have some of them around here. They're Mennonites, not the Amish, the ones here, but the same thing basically. Drive horse and buggy, same outfits, live the exact same way. I'm not exactly sure 100% what the difference is between Mennonites and Amish, but they're basically the same. And they make furniture and meat, stuff like that. Like they dried meats and whatnot. Pretty much what they do.
Communities across the world. In terms of regional distinctions, though, Germany is...
And they make really good furniture. Like, their furniture's top-notch, built to last, and very nice. People love it. Not cheap, though. But good quality stuff isn't cheap, right?
Kind of divided into 5 cultural areas: Rhineland, East and Mitteldeutschland, Norddeutschland, Baden-Württemberg, and Bavaria. Rhineland is on the west side and has a culture somewhat more influenced by France, more Catholics. Carnival celebrations are huge out here. East and Middle Germany was the part that used to be its own country for 40 years as it was influenced by the Soviets. Sorbians can also be found here too. Northern Germany has a coastal sea culture that identifies closer with Denmark and the Netherlands. They are also known for being kind of quiet and reserved. Baden-Württemberg has an interesting Swabian culture where they speak a dialect so thick that only about 40% of it is intelligible to other Germans. And then you have Bavaria, which is where the Americanized, perpetuated stereotypes about Germany came from, with lederhosen, dirndls, half-timber, beer houses, and cuckoo clocks. For the record, Germans are sick of those stereotypes. It's like saying all Americans are cowboys with guns and horses. Speaking of stereotypes, some of the stereotypes in Germany include things like Saxons being very indecisive, Berliners are always bragging about themselves, Swabians are stingy, Bavarians drink too much, Hessians talk too much, Holsteiners don't talk enough, and so on. Words differ from regions too. For example, in High German, you would say Auf Wiedersehen, but in Bavarian, you would say Fiat die Gott. In Kölsch, you would say Tschüss, and in Rhineland, you might say Ajus. And there's so many compound words that get really long and complicated, like Rindfleischetikettierungsüberwachungsaufgaben Übertragungsgesetz.
He's got to be German to be able to talk like that or live somewhere close to there, because, wow. He did very, very well on that. I wouldn't even be able to start that.
This is because
off.
many words are merkwürdig, or ambiguous words, that are kind of elongated to give off an extensive meaning. Germans have very vivid imaginations and make up words for everything. Like my favorite word, an extensive meaning. Germans have very vivid imaginations and make up words.
Earworm, distance, pain, grief, bacon, grief bacon, inner pig dog, exterior shame, closing gate panic, staircase joke, and life tired. Life tired? 18 words German, words you won't believe exist. Yeah, they're different.
It's for everything. Like my favorite word, Backpfeifengesicht. Not this time. By the way, for the record, this letter makes a double S sound. However, spelling reformers have tried to decrease the usage of this letter in recent years, which has led to some protests. Germans also love dubbing everything from foreign media into German. Some like this, some don't, but either way, it's here to stay. About 60% of the country identifies, at least nominally, as Christians, split between Protestants and Catholics. Germany was even the birthplace of the Protestant Reformation, split from the Catholic Church by Martin Luther. Otherwise, the rest are mostly agnostic or irreligious, with a noticeable community of Muslims, mostly from the huge Turkish and Middle Eastern communities, at about 5%, as well as a few Jews, Buddhists, and Hindus rounding up the remainder 1%. To kind of get a feel of what it's like to be German, you kind of have to understand where they've come from. After World War II, they kind of had a lot of work to do. However, it wasn't until the mid-50s and early 60s that the Wirtschaftswunder, or economic wonder, happened, to which almost everybody got to work. Basically, this guy envisioned and implemented a social market economy combined with free market capitalism alongside socialist policies that established fair competition in a welfare state. GDP increased by 80%, investments by 120%, labor forces were utilized to the maximum. Things started to get better. In Germany, all children are corralled into general public schools until age 10, when they are given the option to enroll in 3 different types of middle schools. Gymnasium, geared towards focusing on higher linguistic, mathematic, and science fields for universities. Realschule, a middle ground type of school. And Hauptschule, a school that is geared towards helping kids that seem to show promise in specific vocation or trades. Germany.
That is actually pretty cool. I like that. I wish our schools kind of did that over here, instead of they just teach you you are forced to learn certain things that you'll never need or use, or some things like you have to have so many credits in high school anyways. You have to have so many credits of each thing, and understandably, we need to learn speak and spell in English, and math is pretty much a necessity too, and not so much more for the younger generation. They've got cell phones doing it all for them, but like you need to be able to do math, you need to be able to speak and spell, but not everybody needed to have like so many, say, arts gyms. I guess we did have to take French class all through school. Took French class, get to high school. I think it was 2 credits you needed in French. Still can't speak it. Took it all through school. But they made you, and like geography and all that. Like, yeah, if you're going to be a tradesman, there's a lot of stuff you aren't going to really need that they spend all the time teaching you, when they could have been spending more time teaching you stuff that you're actually going to use in life, which, yeah, I think that's pretty neat.
Also has the largest music market in the EU and the 3rd in the world after the US and Japan. They love preserving their heritage and culture through music and art. In fact, there are around 130 national orchestras, mostly supported by public money, and artists get a 50% reduction in health insurance through a special type of offer in the legal system. One thing that still kind of supposedly maintains itself in Germany is the mindset of Vergangenheitsbewältigung. Totally butchered that, which kind of translates to a lingering sense of guilt from the past. Germans have reportedly some of the lowest levels of national pride, and unless if you're at a soccer game, chances are you will almost never see anyone holding a German flag or waving it in any kind of like patriotic setting. It's weird.
Yeah, that really sucks. That shouldn't even be a thing, I get it though. Couple years ago, we had this thing here in Canada called the Trucker Convoy, and all of a sudden, if you were running around with the Canadian flag, people were like, "Oh, you're a racist, and you're this, and you're that," and just blah blah blah. And now all of a sudden, because Trump's putting tariffs on us, it's patriotic to put out a Canadian flag. It's like, could we please just make up our mind? Either the Canadian flag is good or bad. And the German people today don't really have. It's what happened in the past is not their fault. The people of today, anyways. Maybe some of the old people, if they're still alive, they might have been, but the general population had nothing to do with what happened in the past. Kind of like over here, where they're constantly, if you're white, you're a racist and a slave owner, because you're supposed to feel guilty because you were born with white skin, and and the media just keeps pushing and pushing that narrative more and more. Like the 90s, I thought like it was totally over with, and everybody was cool with everybody, but now all of a sudden the media's just, they put it back on life support and brought it right back, and it's all people on and the internet want to talk about anymore, and it's sickening. It's like, I've never owned one, I've never been one, so it's just, but yet I'm supposed to feel guilty for being white, and I guess it's the same kind of thing like the Germans, because of what, past people did. The people of today shouldn't be paying for it, by no means. That's just silliness.
Almost never see anyone holding a German flag or waving it in any kind of patriotic setting. It's weird, but it's kind of how things are.
You monster!
They've made great strides to move on from the past. Nazi flags and Mein Kampf are incredibly illegal items to own in Germany, and they even have a rule, the Volksverhetzung, which basically says you cannot talk trash by denying the past atrocities. Some people say this infringes on free speech, others say it's good because it solidifies truth. Otherwise, some notable Germans throughout history include Charlemagne, although he was a Frank, but I guess it kind of counts. Albrecht, Dürer, David Friedrich, Gutenberg, Bach, Beethoven, Carl Benz, Albert Einstein, although Americans would like to claim that he moved to the US and became an American.
Us Canadians know different about Albert Einstein. I knew he moved to America. So.
Carl Benz, Albert Einstein, although Americans would like to claim that he moved to the US and became an American. Johannes Kepler, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, Friedrich Schiller, Michael Schumacher, Alex von Humboldt, and of course Karl Marx.
Michael Schumacher, did he really belong in that list of people, to be honest?
Although Americans would like to claim that he moved to the US and became an American.
You got all these guys from the
Kepler,
past, and you got like
Johann
some
Wolfgang
race
von
car
Goethe,
driver.
Friedrich Schiller, Michael Schumacher, Alex von Humboldt, and of course Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels co-founded Marxism. But one thing Germans do best would have to be diplomacy. To this day, the German passport holds the most visa-free nations out of any other country in the world, just beating Sweden. Therefore, you can kind of conclude that Germany kind of knows how to relate to people. Let's find out how in the final round, level 4. Germany knows how to make friends. They have over 220 diplomatic missions abroad and over 350 honorary consuls, and have an incredibly high position of authority in the EU. Their closest African friend would probably be Namibia. As a former German colony way back in the 19th century, Namibia held on relations, and to this day, German is still a recognized language in Namibia. Germans have been supporting and sharing ties both economically and ideologically for over a century. India and South Korea are really close friends in Asia. India supported both East and West Germany during the Cold War, and after reunification, they were like, woohoo! Even better! And Germany is to South Korea what Japan is to France. They love to piggyback off of each other's ideas and cultures, especially in the automotive industry. Many South Koreans were sent to Germany after the Korean War to work abroad and study, and Germans have been growing in fascination with visiting South Korea. The US is probably the closest ally outside of the EU. About 30% of Americans claim German heritage, and after World War II, the Marshall Plan allowed the US to give post-war aid to Germany, which helped kickstart the economic recovery. Germany was a key figure in the formation of the State of Israel after World War II, which after the Holocaust left an obligation to invest in the building up of a Jewish community. Turkey is probably the closest Middle Eastern ally, as the Turks make up the largest Asian demographic in Germany, although many of them may or may not also identify as Kurds. But since Kurds don't have a state of their own, they usually go under Turkish passports when immigrating and are documented as such. Their best friends, however, would probably be literally all their neighbors. The thing is, Germany is kind of like Bosnia and Herzegovina, in which by default they kind of get friends based off of the regional alliances. Bavarians get along with Austrians, Baden-Württembergs get along with Switzerland, East Germany has good relations with the Slavic countries, the Rhine states love Belgium, Luxembourg, and France, and the North side loves the Netherlands and Denmark. France, though, is kind of like the trophy wife of Germany, as the two have had an angry start but then eventually fell in love and worked together beautifully. France is like the beautiful, flashy spokesperson for the EU that stands in the spotlight as Germany stands in the background, managing all the money and logistical work. In conclusion,
yeah, I did a reaction to France. It's a nice place. Nice land, nice architecture, nice history. Nobody watched it, so I don't know why, but yeah, I think it's had like 19 views or something, so I probably won't be doing much more on France.
although Germanic peoples have existed for thousands of years, an actual unified German state didn't
Could just be the language barrier too, I don't know.
appear until kind of recently, and the brief time that they've been around, they've kind of gone through some of the most intense, world-revolutionizing historical events possibly imagined. Yet, they've come out working hard and building their way up to become a world superpower. You gotta give it to them. There's something about the Germans. And with that, final boss level complete. Stay tuned. Another African state Germany has ties to, Ghana, is coming up next.
Oh, Yeah, that was very, very educational. I actually learned a lot in that. Way more than I learned in the other video I watched on the 5-minute history. It went by so fast. That was still even pretty quick. He was a fast talker. And I've been told I'm a fast talker, and I was sitting there thinking, wow, he's talking fast. But yeah, that was some really crazy interesting stuff. And yeah, the vehicles made over in Germany, I've never heard anything bad about them, except for the price wise. But that's because you got to import the parts. The cars got to be sent from Germany here to Canada. Same with the parts. And like I said, quality costs money. So they're gonna be expensive because they're high quality vehicles, high quality and stuff. So like, yeah, most of those vehicles they named are really pricey over here. Volkswagen was probably the cheapest of the bunch, and even they aren't that cheap over here. Um, a lot of people like the Volkswagen, though. You see a ridiculous amount of them. And they're a little bit higher class vehicle, too, than, say, your regular, American, Canadian-made cars. But obviously not as high class as the BMWs, the Audis, and the Mercedes and whatnot, because like they're really up there. Really nice vehicles. I really enjoyed my Audis, other than when I had to get them fixed. But anyhow, yeah, I really enjoyed that video. So if you could give me a like, comment, subscribe, that'd be awesome. And I hope you check out one of my other videos. All right. You guys have yourselves a great day, and hope to see you again. All right. Bye for now.